So welcome, you're all here for Global Digital Week and learning more about how AI can help improve your lives. I'm Gilberto DeSalvo, I'm the CEO of Delphire. We're working on emergency detection using artificial intelligence to speed up how we detect emergencies today and how we report them visually from the field. I'm here with Bill Ward.
I'm the executive director of PumpPod USA. We manufacture the Helipod, and the Helipod is a high-capacity automated helicopter dip tank that helps the helicopters respond to a wildfire.
So today we're going to tell you a little bit about how we can use all of these digital technologies together to redefine the standard for how fires are detected. Currently, we're looking for giant plumes of smoke above the forest canopy, and we're trying to redefine that to detecting a small fire or an emergency in its incipient stages while it's still happening early on so that it can be tackled easier. By detecting these fires earlier, for example, we did some test ignitions down in Irvine, California, here by us, and we set up at several hundred meters away from where the ignition was happening, and we were able to capture all of these ignitions within about a minute of the fire starting. This is a new way of using artificial intelligence by capturing these fires at a very, very early stage. And by using AI, we were also able to detect some of these fires at night, like the picture on the top right. This opens up a whole new field of firefighting, which can use the pump pod together with our system to enable responding to a fire day or night and automating some parts of the detection, the visual confirmation by providing these images directly to the fire department, and then working with PumpPod here to automate with our technology how the tank is being filled and automating the lights so that we're able to tackle fires any time of the day, whenever they happen, and tackle them much more quickly than is possible today. For example, let's say a fire happens in an environment, we're able to just analyze the data locally. This speeds up the time by using artificial intelligence that it takes for a fire to be recognized. We can take that picture, we can compress it locally, and we can send it over to our servers. And then from our servers, we can send that picture on to a lot of different stakeholders and make it available, for example, to fire responders so that they can get ready to respond. We can make it available to Bill so they can start filling his helicopter dip tanks. And we can make it available to the people on the ground so that you can get out of your home, so that you can be safe, and so your family can get out and actually have enough time to make sure that other people in your community are safe as well, and so you're able to help each other get out. That's something that today is not being done well enough, and we want to bring all of these stakeholders together using digital data and using artificial intelligence to make sure that you're warned quicker. We also want to scale to flooding, high wind events, and other natural disasters so that you get a warning when there's a real risk, and so that help can be brought over to you by enabling communications in areas that are normally difficult to reach. How do we do this? Well, we built a device which enables, as a communication platform as its core, it's secure data communication. And then we have optional cameras on board that can be added on to provide visual monitoring, both visible and thermal, of the location. And we can add a variety of chemical sensors on board of our unit. We can also cover wind speed and wind direction if it's needed. And since the platform is modular, there might be places where we simply want to use our communications and data analysis packages with existing platforms. We're able to extend to those via our smart AI, which is running on board into our device. And we can also use our connectors on board to extend to other applications like working with Bill. As an example, the same technology which is in our core package can be used to automate their tank, and Bill is going to tell us a little bit more about how that's impactful.
Yeah, so the Helipod is groundbreaking in the fact that it's the kind of tank that actually automatically fills. So once it's connected to a water source, it will automatically fill either when commanded by the automated system and communications package, and or someone can then also activate it manually if they needed to do on site. The key thing with the Helipod is that when the helicopter comes on scene, which a lot of times he's the first one, he can help keep the fire down to a manageable level to where the fire ground units can come in and now help finish putting out the flames in the fire. The other key thing is, how does it affect your lifestyle? So if the water source is close to the communities of the wildland urban interface, then it can do a couple of things. One, keep this fire small, but if you're keeping the fire small while the people are evacuating, we don't have situations that happen like in Northern California to where they didn't get any notice and a number of people got caught on the road and a number of them perished. So the faster that the AI system, like the Delphire system, can detect it, the faster then the helicopters can be dispatched, and the faster the ground units can be dispatched, and the quicker then the reverse 911 can notify the homeowners and the people who could potentially be in the path. So I know that part of the AI system can also be used either by the fire department to determine where does that fire, where it's at right now, and the weather conditions predict where that fire is going to go and who needs to be evacuated.
And it's also very important to realize that even though you might live next to the sea or you might live next to a water source, that source might not be practical for a helicopter to be used to respond.
Right. I mean, a good example of that is we just had the coastal fire here this May of 22 in Laguna Niguel. It was literally less than a half a mile from the ocean. And you cannot use ocean seawater because it'll ruin the helicopter, but it'll also kill all the ground for a very long time from ever growing anything again. And it also can cause corrosion on the homes or whatever you put the water on. So the key thing to the helipod is you're bringing the water source or the pond or the lake right into the community to where you can put as much water on the fire per hour as possible. And that the Delphire system gives as much advance warning while it's small to where when they're responding, it doesn't get away from them, especially in a windy condition. That's very important.
Yeah, so hopefully that gives you a pretty good overview about how a system using AI and digital technologies can be used to keep our forest green by automating the detection, the reporting of a fire with a picture so that you know it's a real issue, but also helping with other technologies in the fire response to make sure that they are ready to go when they're truly needed, so that the fire department can leverage them much more quickly than is possible today. Next, I'd love to connect with some of the residents of some of these areas to hear about how disasters have impacted their lives and how they think that these technologies can actually help them with these disasters in the future. Thank you.
You bet.
Hey, thanks for everybody for joining us here for Global Digital Week. Today, I'd love to talk a little bit more about AI, cameras, and communications and how they can help with natural disasters. So again, Gilberto DeSalvo, I run Delphire, and we're a startup that's tackling the wildfire detection issues and enabling communications in remote areas and disaster areas. So why don't we go around the room and everybody introduce themselves? Sarah, do you want
to? My name is Sarah Johnston. I am a community member in the Aldercroft Heights community in the Santa Cruz Mountains. And I'm an organizer around wildfire resiliency for our neighbors.
And Wolf?
I am Wolf. I'm a NASA Technology Transfer Partner, and I'm an intern at Microgrid Technology at Delphire.
And can you tell us a little bit more about your background in disasters? What's got you interested in them and what you've been doing?
Sure. So for the last 3 or 4 years, I've been the CEO of a company, Dara Enterprises. We specialize in industrial safety and equipment. We have been very busy in the Gulf area, in Louisiana, more than 4 level 5 hurricanes. And then I came out to California to try to get away from the hurricanes, and I've been stuck in the snowstorm of the century in the mountain resort area. 7 days. So disasters have been following me around, and it's just good because I specialize in technologies around industrial safety and emergency. So I'm okay being trapped in disaster.
And then Raghu, would love for you to introduce yourself and kind of your background in technology and.
Yeah, I am Raghu Kunath. My background is electrical engineering mostly. I've got some medical engineering background as well, and business degree. I have worked on technologies for edge computing, specifically in the oil and gas space for oil spill detection, wireless communication, and that sort of areas. So yeah, that's my background. I've done a lot of product development, business development as well.
And it sounds like we have a great experience covering just about almost every disaster here, maybe except for earthquakes. And hopefully we don't get any more of those here in California for a while. Yeah, I'd love to see kind of what everybody's perspective is and going around the room about how the global digital world can help us tackle some of these challenges, especially in regards to how remaining connected can change the outlook of a disaster, and how imagery of multiple types and AI can help tackle some of these challenges that we see during the early stages of some of these events, and then how to facilitate the response of the event to an event, which can last sometime for several days or weeks, depending on how things are. So why don't we start with Wolf, since you're actually in the middle of one of these events right now, and tell us a little bit about how the day-to-day looks and how these technologies might help in the future.
So I'm in Lake Arrowhead, California, about 5,600 mountains. In the snowstorm of the century, I literally have 25 feet of snow outside of my home. When I walk out of my home, I'm looking at my second story. And when it comes to disaster communications, I can tell you there was a complete breakdown in communicating risk and communicating road closures. So when you talk about the visibility, I mean, let's start first of all, just road closures and the extreme nature of weather. That's number one. So it took me 2 or 3 days to really realize how bad the weather was. And it's, if your electricity's off or you're closed down, but you still have your cell phone, it seems to me to be a missed opportunity to not communicate with everyone in the geozone. Hey, you're in an area that's about to get 25 feet of snow, or that has 10 feet of snow that won't be plowed for 4 or 5 days. And that coordinated communication seems to be difficult right now for communities, for first responders. The second thing is fire risk. So it took 9 homes to explode because the gas meters were buried in snow before we got the first communication from the gas and utility companies that we should watch out for trouble. 9 homes literally exploded, and before the first communication went out. So there's another area that is a problem. And the big problem is they had to wait for helicopter flyovers to do the risk assessment. Well, if you have to wait for a storm to clear to do the helicopter flyover, you're putting people at risk for days, because you don't know that storm, like the storm up here, it took 5 days for it to be clear enough for them to do the flyover. So having that early alert, this is the extreme degree of the weather. This is your risk of fire, with either buried meters, electric or gas meters, or water explosions. And then the third area, and it's going to be a stretch for the technology, and maybe a coordination with at-home devices like Google, Google Home, or the Amazon Echo, but communicating from the community's standpoint out to the emergency providers. So up here, and during the hurricanes too, there are a lot of instances where people have a cell phone or they have some other device that's active. They don't have a voice during the emergency to say, hey, I'm trapped in my home and I need diabetes medicine, or I'm trapped in my home with 5 kids, or I'm trapped and my leg is broken. That communication from the person who's most extreme at danger out to the first responders there's a technology gap there that I think products like the Delphire products can help solve.
Thank you. And Sarah, why don't you give us your perspective from the wildfire standpoint?
Certainly. So we are residents of the WUI, the Wildland Urban Interface, and so we have a neighborhood here with about 120 homes. Yet we're surrounded by forested lands, and some of those are overgrown with invasive species. And we've heard all about forest management practices and lack of letting fires burn and that sort of thing to clean up a lot of the lands around us. And so we're living amongst that. To add to our challenges, we're also what's known as a one-way out community. We really have one good or not so great, not even so great road in order to get our residents out to safety. So for us, it's really important that we know early and that we know exactly where the wildfire is, because we don't want our residents to get into a situation where they're evacuating somewhere that they're actually putting themselves at greater risk. So as Wolf said, it's all about communications. So to have the earliest possible notification out to all of our residents that there is an imminent threat, you need to leave now. So we're not all, trying to get down these one-lane roads with a wildfire blazing behind us, and also to notify those first responders as soon as possible in order to get some help. But the other thing I think also is with the intelligence of that system is we don't want a system that gives us a bunch of false warnings either. So it's really got to be a smart system to understand the difference between fog and clouds and smoke and what all those things are. Because if you don't have a system that can do that, you're giving people false warnings, then maybe when there really is an emergency, people aren't going to listen to it. Mm-hmm. So we are really looking to try and develop those sorts of communication systems within our community to help give our residents the best chance in the event of what it's not if it will come. We really feel like it's when it will come. We really want the best chance, and so we're really looking towards systems like Delphire to do that for our community.
Thank you. It's definitely a challenge to get things perfect, but we're striving towards that, and I think we can make a big impact. And one of the things that we try to set apart is that we're able to send out a picture every time that there's an event so that people can look at it and evaluate very quickly, is this a problem? And I think the community coming together and helping form, and we're already seeing examples of this more widely, which is people are forming communication channels that are shared where you can leverage the community aspect of looking at the data that's coming in from all the systems like ours and really inform and help propagate the alert, because you need a whole community coming together to tackle the problem and to respond to it. Raghu, do you want to tell us a little bit more about the oil spill aspect of detecting and communicating alerts around that, which is also a big challenge for, a big impact on climate today is the oil and gas industry. And as we transition away from oil and gas, it's still important to ensure that there is no large ecological damage. So I'd love to know more on that.
Absolutely. So just to give a little bit of background on from my side on fires, I lived in San Diego from 2000 to 2018, and happened to see all the fires that happened there. In 2003 and 2007 were the major fires, and I was evacuated in 2003 fires, which was major fire there. Luckily, my place was fine. Came back, there was an inch of ash, and I was really thinking, this is big. It was huge impact. I had people directly and indirectly who are known to people who lost houses. So that was a big impact on the community there. My background took me to running my own startup at that time, which was in the oil and gas space, but technology very close and similar to what Delphire is doing in terms of remote communication and low latency alerting when a disaster happens. My work at the time was focused on detecting oil spills. We had an opportunity in the Gulf of Mexico where a lot of oil installations are there, oil rigs, oil refineries, all kinds of support and supporting infrastructure for that industry. And oil spill happens there all the time. We have had that several times in our California coast. So the product that I was working on was a proprietary non-contact oil detection mechanism that would detect hydrocarbons that are exposed, and it uses an optical technology to sense hydrocarbons, and we used satellite and cellular technology to detect it and alert authorities as fast as possible. And obviously, we had issues with false warning, like Sarah mentioned. That's a problem. We were depending on a third-party company for the detection. And back then, this was 8-9 years ago, there was no AI, there was no smart systems. Communication bandwidth was lower and more expensive, so we couldn't send out any photographs or pictures for mitigating false alarm situations. So things have changed. We have come a long way. So when I got to meet Gilberto and understand what Delphire is doing and have an opportunity to contribute, it seemed like we can do a lot more now, given where the technology is, especially with artificial intelligence, much better far scanning optical technology, faster and low latency, high bandwidth communications available now compared to a decade ago. And we have the technology now to make things a lot more impactful in a way that you can have real actionable outcomes from these devices out in the field. So yeah, and satellites have gotten so much more cheaper and faster and easily accessible. So all of that brings a really good opportunity for a product like this to make an impact in the society and community, I think.
Yeah, and we're seeing a lot of momentum in technology in general. I think where we're going to be today is a great use of digital technology to give people in emergent situations a lot of information. 5 years down the line, we're going to see a monumental shift from where we are today, where we're able to do a completely different way of approaching the problem. We're able to rely much more information in real time, and every year matters, and every year we can give a better use of digital technologies and keep people connected for longer as battery technology continues to improve, as satellite technology continues to improve. And the 5 to 10 year outlook is that it's going to be a dramatic shift in how we detect these problems, how we even prevent some of these problems as we begin to understand them better, and how we enable both the immediate response, but also how we integrate these digital technologies in the entire response chain. Like I covered earlier, we can begin automating some of the responses via robotics or by using different communication frameworks in a way that was not possible even a few years ago. And in my view, the biggest thing that we're going to see in the future is an automated way to really detect and tackle these fires, which is going to come together from a variety of industries and help both the early phases, but also the later phases, so that people are not stuck and are getting the information when it truly matters in these disasters. And I'd love to know your perspective, sort of what you see 3 or 5 years out being the most likely, or what help would you like to see coming out of these new technologies? What do you see as the most helpful way for technology to help these challenges?
Advanced warning advanced warning, by the time you're in the disaster, you're already in trouble. So I think one of the biggest leaps forward will be a coordinated effort to give early warning information in a way that allows for a smart escape from the highest point of impact, or for the most amount of people. There's going to be some intelligence involved in, in that piece of it, especially if you're in, as one of your guests said, they're in a one lane out kind of situation. So there's some intelligence to even that. But we were in a situation where food was being turned away and the stores up here had been damaged. So there was literally no food up here to be had. They were turning the food trucks away. That's not very smart when you have thousands of people stuck. So I think the technology is going to come forward and prevent that type of bad operational response during the disaster and help enable the smart responses.
Sarah?
Well, yeah, I really definitely agree with everything Wolf said. So that was along the lines of my thoughts. And in addition to getting out the information early, just really making the systems resilient. As we've talked about, this has been a really tough winter, and we have gone through multiple power outages, and when the power goes out, the internet goes out, and we've had our water system fail, which, obviously if there was a fire here in the winter, we would be in big trouble. So really working towards not only having this technology, but having the infrastructure surrounding that technology be resilient to the types of extreme weather that we're seeing, in order for it to be able to function.
Thank you. And Gregor?
Well, what I can add to it is that definitely where technology is right now, we do have all the ingredients to make a product to address all the concerns that you've raised. And adding to all of that, when you add artificial intelligence, it greatly improves how much we can avoid false triggers and having capability to learn a certain area and know what happens there on a daily basis and things like that. That adds to the artificial intelligence will greatly improve when an actual fire happens, which is an anomaly to a location. So yeah, I think I'm excited about how this technology can affect a real scenario.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and just in closing here real quick, I wanted to share my own story. I also had the unfortunate experience of being displaced for a few months after an apartment fire. So the apartment below mine caught fire, and we got displaced as ours also was completely damaged by the flames below, and I lived out of a hotel for about 3 months. So part of the goal here is also to reduce the amount of time that people get displaced from a fire, so that we can actually tackle them earlier. And I think as technology evolves in the next 5 years, we're not only going to get better at hopefully tackling the fire earlier, but also putting it out earlier so that there's less damage in the community. That may not be possible for other natural disasters, and it requires, as Sarah mentioned, keeping up with prescribed burning and clearing brush and a lot of other preventative measures as well. But if done correctly, fires is one of the things that we perhaps have the most control over how it's handled. Some of the other disasters, it's still going to be mainly about how we respond to them, because you cannot really stop wind and hurricanes in the same way that you can prevent some of these. So maybe focusing first on the low-hanging fruit is why we approach the fire problem first, but eventually I think we can make an impact in providing communications and tracking people through other natural disasters and getting people out safely. So thank you all for your perspective here. I really enjoyed finding out how you think about digital technologies and how AI can help each of the challenges that we've all faced here. So Thank you so much for taking the time, and thanks everybody for listening in. Bye.
Thank you.